Hello everyone and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be building a currency converter, as you can see on the screen. So it is a nice looking application, a small application, but it is loaded with functionality because we're going to be using two APIs in this application. So the first one is called the exchange rate API, and that is the one that we're going to be using to get our conversions for the currencies. And the second one is called the flag CDN, which is going to help us to get these flag icons that we're going to have in our select drop down right here. And then actually we're using three of them because the third one is called IP API, which gets the geographical location of the user, so that when the application loads in, it automatically detects the country of that person and then sets it into one of the inputs, as you can see right here. So the currency converter works as follows, very simple. So you can enter a value here, and then when you click on convert, then it is going to convert that value into the currency that you have selected, and then you can swap the values here. But there's somewhere that I messed up, such that when you click on the swap button here, it doesn't give the correct value that is converted. So if you happen to see where I messed up in the video, then please do leave it in the comments below, because I will really appreciate to know where I went wrong. And of course, you can go ahead and check the repository. The repository is inside my GitHub profile. So if you go into my GitHub profile right here and then search for currency-converter, then that is the code that we're going to be writing in this video. So right away, let's go ahead and create our application. So CMD to open up my terminal, and then CD into my desktop, and then into a folder that is called projects on my desktop. And then I'm going to say pnpx create dash next dash app, and then dash dash example, because I want to use a template that I created which has most of the dependencies that I usually use for any application that I build. So https github.com/sanckthomas/next 15-starter, that is the template. I should zoom in, and then the name of our application is called currency-converter-yt, and then I'm going to let this execute, and then once it finishes, we are going to continue. So once this finishes running, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say code currency-converter-yt, which is going to open up an instance of Visual Studio Code into this folder, and then we can begin to type away. And there we go. So right away, let's say Ctrl-J to open up a terminal, and then we can say pnpm dev, which is going to open up our dev server on localhost 3000. So I've switched over into my Ubuntu OS because I was having some issues with Windows, and what I've done is I've just run my server again, so that now if you go ahead and open up localhost 3000, then you should be able to see this on the screen. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and get our API key from the API that we're going to be using. Now the API is called exchange rate API. So if we just go ahead and Google exchange rate API, then this is the one that we're looking for. So I'm just going to zoom in so that you get the correct icon as well as the correct link. So you can just open this up. It will take you into their website, and then you can just go ahead and click on get free key, which will prompt you to sign up, and then it is going to take you into a dashboard where they are going to provide you with your API key. So I already have an account, so I'm just going to sign in quickly. And once I sign up, you can see that my API key is provided right here. So this is the page that you're going to be redirected to once you sign up. So just go ahead and copy your API key right here, and then we can go ahead and back inside our workspace. We're going to create a new file called .env.local, and inside this file we're going to say the following. We're going to say in capital letters, so next underscore public underscore exchange underscore rate underscore API underscore key. So next public exchange rate API key, set it equal to the API key, which should be your API key, which you have just copied. Now I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now I should mention this, that if you try to use this API key, it's not going to work for you, because I'm going to rotate it so that it doesn't surpass the monthly quota, which is 1500 requests. So that should be okay. And right on the bottom, you can see here that it gives us an example request. So if I just click this to open it up, then you can see that this is what we're going to be getting. So we want to go ahead and get the conversion rates right here. And then this is what we're going to be using in our application. So right away, let's go ahead and begin to do that. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to jump back into our application, and then inside our application, we're going to go ahead and create a new folder here called components. And then inside components, we're going to create a new file called currency converter. So currency converter.jsx. And then inside here, I can just say RFC, which is coming from an extension that I have, and it's not working. So, okay, there we go. So RFC, like so. And this extension is called ES7 Plus React Redux and React Native Snippets. So you can go ahead and search for this extension. You can install it, and it will allow you to do shorthand properties such as that, so that you don't have to keep on typing out this code every single time. So just rename this into capital, so currency converter, and then you can save that. And then back inside our app folder, and then inside the page.js, we're simply going to remove everything inside this div. So right on the bottom, really, I didn't select it. So remove everything inside this div. We're going to return a div, and then we're going to render out the currency converter. So currency converter, which is coming from add components / currency converter. Now, above this, we're going to have another component which I've not yet created, but this component is going to be responsible for the dark mode toggle. So for now, this is going to be just as it is, because we just want to see what it is rendering to the screen. And if I save it and reload it, you can see that now we just have currency converter on the screen. Now, because it's going to be easier, let's go ahead and implement our dark mode toggle right away, because we don't want to wait until the end so that we can begin to type out our styles to match the theme. So let's just go ahead and do that right away. And the way that we're going to do it is we're going to go into shadcn, and you know what, let me just remember, it should be shadcn next themes, and right here I zoomed in. So Next.js, nope, dark mode. Is it this one? See, dark mode, there we go. So next theme, if you go into shadcn UI, you can search for next themes, and it's going to take you into this page. So you want to go ahead and install this and then implement our dark mode toggle, because this way is going to be easier. So back inside our application, Ctrl J to open up our terminal. Let's add a second terminal here, and then we're going to say npm add next-themes. And then as this is installing, we're going to go ahead and copy this. So copy, and then we need to place it inside the components theme provider. I mean, the placement doesn't really matter as long as you can reference the file correctly. So copy that, and then back inside components, let's create a new file called theme-provider.jsx. Now we're using JSX, that's why I'm not giving this an extension of TSX. Paste it inside here, and then because this is TypeScript, we can remove this part safely, and it's going to work. So save that, and then we need to go ahead and wrap the theme provider inside our layout. So I'm just going to copy this, and then inside our layout.js file, I'm going to paste it inside here, paste it in, and then we need to go ahead and control spacebar right here so that we can import it from components theme provider. Now make sure that you import the one that you've created, so this one right here, instead of the one from next themes. So import it from components theme provider, and then on the HTML here, we're going to add an attribute here called suppress hydration warning, and this will help us so that we don't get some annoying errors about hydration because of the dark mode toggle. So make sure that you add this in. And then next, we need to actually create the toggle itself. So I'm going to go into the code tab right here, and then I'm going to copy this, and then save our layout.js file, of course. And then back inside the components, I'm going to create a new file called mod.toggle.jsx. So mod.toggle.jsx, and then just paste in whatever we had. But then notice how we need this component from shadcn. So we're going to go ahead and install it. So Ctrl J once again to open up your terminal, and then we're going to say pnpx shadcn add drop down dash menu. So now I don't know whether I mentioned this in the beginning of the video, but if you used the template repository like I did when we were creating the application, then you should already have shadcn installed. However, if you did not use the repository, the template repository, then what you can do is simply go into shadcn and then just look for installation right here, and then Next.js, because we're building in Next.js or whatever technology that you're using, and then just simply follow the steps to initialize shadcn. It is as simple as this first step, and then this second step to add whatever component you want. So in this case, we have added the drop-down menu instead of the button. So it's quite simple to use, and I felt it is worth mentioning that. Now let's go ahead and save this, and then back inside our page.js, we're going to render it right on top of this. So mode toggle, like so. Save that, and then now if we check our application, we should have our toggle somewhere. So it says button. Oh, it needs the button. So Control J once again, and then pnpx shardcn add button, and then that is going to install the button component from shardcn. And there we go. So now we can save it, and we should be able to see our toggle right there. Now it looks a bit weird because of the styling that is applied. So let's go ahead and fix that. And the way that we're going to do it is we're going to jump inside our globals.css file. We're going to go to the bottom, and then we're going to change up distance just a bit. So we're going to say that bg neutral -50, this is going to be on light mode screens. So bg neutral 50, text neutral -900. And then on dark mode, we're going to have bg neutral -900. And then on dark mode, then the text is going to be white. Now, if we save that, then now it should apply light mode. And then now we can click on our button right here to toggle, and we can toggle the dark mode as well. So now it's looking much better. And then just to fix this a bit, I need this to go to the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump back into our mode toggle, and then we're going to select everything inside this drop down, and then we're going to return a div, and this div is going to have a class name here of fixed, and then right 4 to take it to the right, and then give it a top of 4 to push it downwards just a bit. And then now we can paste in our drop down menu, and we can save that, and then now this should appear right there. So now our toggle is on the right, looking much better. And so now let's begin to build out our currency converter. So what we're going to do therefore is the following. We're going to close all of these files down. So close all, and then we can jump into the currency converter, and we can close down the sidebar. Now we are going to be adding some state inside this file. So we need this to be marked as use client, because we're going to be using some React hooks. Now inside here, we can go ahead and import the use effect and the use state hook. So use state hook. And then what we need is we need a component from shardcn that is called toaster. So let's go ahead and do that. And toaster is basically just to show notifications. So pnpx shardcn add toaster, what's it called? Not toaster really, but sonar. That's what it's called. And then as that is installing, we need to jump inside our layout.js file. And then right above the children, we can go ahead and render out the toaster component. And we need this to finish installing. So control spacebar, and then import it from sonar. So import it from toaster from toaster from sonar. Save that, and then now we can continue to build this out. So we're going to import the toast, which is the method from the toaster from sonar. And let's actually just go ahead and install all the components that we're going to need, really, because we need quite a few of them. So once again, Control J to open up your terminal, and then we can say pnpx shardcn, so shardcn add, and we want to add the card, we want to add the input, we want to add the select, and I think that's all of them. And then now as they are installing, we can jump back inside here, and then we can continue importing the components that we need. So we need the card, so import card, card content, card description, we need card header, card title, and these are all coming from /UI/card, because we're in the same folder. And then we need the input, so import input and control spacebar, and then oops, that's the wrong one, so control spacebar, and make sure that you select the one that is coming from /UI input. And then we need the select, so once again, make sure that you select the one that is coming from /UI select. And then we need the select content, so select content, we need select item, we need select trigger, and then we need to select value. And then below this, we need to import the button, which is coming from /UI button. And then we need the image, so we import image from next image. And then we're going to use an arrow here, so import arrow left, so arrow left from Lucid React. And once you install shardcn using the New York style, then you should have access to Lucid React. If not, just simply go ahead and open up your terminal, and then you can say npm install or pnpm add Lucid React. Simple as that. And then once we do that, then we're going to be fetching from a URL here. So const URL is equal to, and then this is going to be inside backticks because we're going to be adding a variable. Now the URL is going to be coming from the exchange rate, which is this that we opened up. So simply copy this, paste it inside here, but then we need to substitute our API key so that it is not visible on the front end. And what we're going to do is just add $sign and then curly brackets, and then we can say process.env dot, and then inside our env local file, you can simply copy this and then paste it here because it is much faster to do that. And then that is the link, or rather the endpoint that we're going to be hitting. Now let's go ahead and set up our state values. So we're going to say const currencies and set currencies is equal to use state, and by default it's going to be an empty array. And then we're going to say const from, so which currency are you converting from, and set from is equal to use state, and by default it's going to be an empty string. And then next is going to be to, so const to and set to is equal to use state. By default it's going to be USD because we always want to have something that we can convert to, so this is kind of like a fallback. And then const amount and set amount, and then this is the amount that you want to convert, so use state. By default is going to be 0, and then const converted amount and set converted amount, which should be self-explanatory. This is going to be equal to use state, and by default is going to be null. And then const loading and set loading is equal to use state. By default it is going to be false. Now we can go ahead and fetch our data. So we're going to say the following: const fetch currencies is equal to an asynchronous function, and then inside here we're going to say we're going to add a try catch block first of all, so try catch block. And then on the part of the error we're going to say this toast.error, so show an error toast, which is this method that we imported right here. So toast.error, and then inside here we're going to say error getting exchange rates, and then we're going to add a comma, and then our curly brackets, we're going to add a description to the error, which is going to say error.message, which is going to be just a bit more descriptive message. And then back inside our try block, we're going to say const response is equal to await axios.get, and you want to pass in the URL which you have on top. Now we don't have Axios, so let's go ahead and install it. So Ctrl-J to open up your terminal, and then npm add Axios, and then enter to install. And then as it is installing, we need to go ahead and import Axios. So right on top right here we can say import Axios from Axios, like so. And then we can go ahead and continue building out our try block. So below the try block we're going to say const currency list. So currency list is equal to, and let me show you something. So we want to get the conversion rates because all this information up here is pretty much useless to us, but the conversion rates are the ones that are useful. But if you take a look at this, the conversion rates is actually an object. So we need to first transform this into an array, and then we need to get this text for the currencies. And then once you get the text for the currencies, then we can display them on the UI. So how do we do that? Very simple. We can simply say object, because we're getting back an object, dot keys, so that it gets the keys of the objects, because objects are key value pairs. So object dot keys, and then we're going to pass in the response. Now the response is coming from the API dot data, because we're using Axios, so we need to get the data. And then we need to pass in the conversion rates, so conversion underscore rates, and the conversion rates are this right here. So that is going to transform it into an array, so that now we can say set currencies, which is our state value on top. Remember, we initialize it to an empty array. So set currencies into the currency list. So currency list, because now it is an array, so that it can now be populated inside here, which means that now it has populated our state value. Now once we do that, then we need to go ahead and call our function. So use effect like so, and then pass in a callback function here with an empty dependency array so that it only runs on the initial render. And then we're going to call fetch currencies. Fantastic. Now once we have that, then let's begin to build out our UI. So we're going to return a div here with a class name of padding all round of 6, and then padding y of 20. And you know this should be padding on the x because we're adding padding on the y here. And then inside this div we're going to have a card, with class name here of mx auto, and then max width dash for xl, particle round of 6, and shadow dash none. And then inside this card we're going to have a card header, and the card header is going to have a card title, and the card title is going to have a class name here of text dash center, and then text dash xl, and then font dash bold, and then this is simply just going to say currency converter. So currency converter, can't even spell it, so that if I save that, then we should be able to see something on the screen, currency converter, once it reloads. And there we go. And just because it's going to be easy, I'm going to place this to the right so that we can place our code editor to the left, like so. And then now we can build side by side. So currency converter, and then below the card header, we're going to go ahead and return the card content. So card content, and the card content is going to have a div inside here with a class name of flex dash column, and then a gap of 3. And then inside this div, we're going to have an input, and the input is going to be a type of number. The value of the input is going to be amount, which is one of our state values. And then when we change the amount, so on change, we're going to access the synthetic event of e, where we're going to say set amount into e.target.value, meaning set amount into whatever we type in, and then the placeholder is going to be 1. So basically 1 is going to be the minimum, and this should be set amount without the e. And then below the input, we're going to have another div with a class name of flex, and then justify dash between, and then give it a gap of 3. And then inside this, we're going to have a select, and the value of the select is going to be the from, so the from currency, and then on value change, and these are props that exist on the select component, and the select component is coming from TsbSankara. So if you want to learn more about this, then simply go and read about the select component from TsbSankara. This is going to be equal to set from, close it out, and then it's going to have a select trigger. So select trigger, close it out, and then inside the select trigger is going to be an image of a flag. Now, for now, we don't have the image yet. So let's just add a comment here. So image of flag, that should be it. And then still within the select trigger, we're going to have the select value. So select value. And then inside here, we're going to be checking for the from currency, or if the from currency does not exist, if the user has not selected anything, then we simply want to go ahead and return select currency. And let's go ahead and save that. Let's see what happens. And there we go. So we have our input right here. So we can change the input. And oops, I can't change the input. What's the issue? Reading value, e.target.value. Value is equal to amount on change e set amount. Oh, sorry. Set amount into e.target.value. That's what I was missing. Save that, and then let's try it again. So we can now change the input. We can change the input value, and then this is going to be the from, and then this is our drop down select, which is currently not working, but we're going to fix that in a few. Now below the select trigger, we're going to have the select content. So select content, and then inside here we want to check whether the currencies dot length is greater than 0, and then if this evaluates to true, then we can map over our currencies. And why are we checking for this? Because sometimes the return inside here can run before the function to go to the API endpoint has finished running. So sometimes you can get an error. So it is prudent that you check for this and that you have a fallback. And the fallback in this case, we're simply going to go ahead and return a card description. And the card description is going to say loading ... Simply like that. And then inside our true statement inside here, we're simply going to say currencies .map, and then for every currency that we get back, so currency, we're going to go ahead and return here a select item. The select item is going to have a key of currency because the currencies are unique, and then the value is going to be currency, and then we can close this out. And then just like on top, we're going to have an image here of the flag, and then outside of this, we're going to render out some text here that says the currency. Now we need to go ahead and get the images next, but let's save it. Let's see what we have on the screen. And there we go. So that is our select dropdown, looking very, very nice. So that means that we can select a currency here and it should populate our select right there. We can go ahead and click the drop down again, select another currency, and it populates our select. And then if we check the light mode, then it automatically shows the light mode version, because we're using TsbSankara components which are dark mode and light mode compatible. So very nice, very easy, very nice. Now next, what we need to do is let's actually go ahead and build out the image so that we can go ahead and get the image from another API that we're going to be using. So right here, we're going to return the image component, and the image, the source for this image is going to be from a function called get flag URL. So get flag URL, and then we're going to pass in the from, because the from right here contains the currency which we are getting back from the API, as you can see. And the API that we're going to be using to get the flags simply goes ahead and checks the from value and then gets the corresponding flag. So it's going to be very simple. And let's go ahead and give it an alt here. The alt is going to be from. So which currency are you converting it from? The width for this is going to be 80. The height is going to be 80. And then we're going to give it some class names here. So we're going to say class name, margin right of 2, inline block, and then give it a size of 6, and then object dash contain, so that it shows the entire flag. And then on the bottom, we're going to do something similar. And you know what? Let's just copy this image. So copy and then paste it here. And then now the get flag from, this is going to be equal to the currency. And then the alt here is going to show the currency. And then the width is going to be 80, height 80, and then the stars are going to remain the same. So before we save that and get an error, let's go ahead and define this function. So right on top, let's go below this. We're going to go ahead and define a function here called get flag URL. So const get flag URL is equal to, and we're going to be passing in the currency. And then we're going to return here. We're going to return here https://flagcdn.com. So flagcdn.com. You can type flagcdn.com /w40 / curly brackets currency. So get the current currency dot slice. So slice it again, then get the first 2 letters of the currency, and then dot to lowercase, like so. And then at the end of this, attach the .png version of the flag. Now flag CDN is as follows. If we go ahead and Google it, so flag CDN. If you open this up, the way that can get a flag, so C usage, the way that can get a flag is, let me go ahead and find it. So you can go ahead and hit their API and then define the dimensions of the flag that you want, and then attach the currency. In this case, we're attaching the currency, but you can attach the country code, and then the .png at the end returns the flag in PNG format. So that is basically what we have done. We have basically taken this, substituted it with our values. And now let's see, let me go ahead and save that, because now we should be able to see the currency flag. So we get an error here. What is the error? It says not configured. So we need to add this inside our next config.js. So copy this, and then let's open up next config. So right on the bottom right here, we can go ahead and add in images, remote patterns. So remote patterns, then add in an array of objects. So host name is going to be this that I copied, and then the protocol. So oh my god, I can't type. So https, save that, and then it should now restart our server. And then as it is restarting, we can reload this and then squeeze it back down, and then let's just wait for it. So wait, we're still getting the same error. Get flag URL, we are still getting it. So hostname flag CDN is not configured. Wait, hostname flagcdn.com https. You know what, let me remove this. Let me add an asterisk here so that it allows flags from anywhere, images from anywhere really. And then let's reload that. And what, it's still giving the same error. Am I doing something wrong? Okay, so you know what, I was the one with the error because I mistyped this. This should be images, typing too fast for my own good. So now this should be okay. We can change it back into flagcdn.com. If I can just type this correctly, so flagcdn, and then save that, and then now you should restart the server. Yes. And then now we can go ahead and reload this, and we should be able to see the flags. And okay, so we are getting an image, so something is working. And if we click the drop down, ooh, my computer is starting to lag. Let's see, click the drop down. Okay, so the drop down is not working, which means that the select is not working. And if the select is not working, it means that our get request is not working. So where is the get request? Is right here. Let's see. Let's try to reload that. Not seeing any errors here. So response.data conversion underscore rates. Okay. That seems okay. Let's open up our console. Let's see what we have. The console. So it's not getting the image. It's not getting the image. 404 not found. Let me try something. Let's just copy this. Copy that. And then let's remove the .2 lowercase. Let's get the, which flag can we get? The Kenyan flag KE should be correct. Okay, so that is working. This is working. Okay, so let's just paste it back inside here, and then let's just substitute it, because we need the flag CDN, and then inside here we need the currency. So $currency dot slice, we need the first two letters, so 0 up to 2. And then because we're getting back the currencies in capital letters, then we need to say .2 lowercase. So .2 lowercase. Then this should be a function .png. So now let's save that again. Let's try it out. Reload. Okay, so it seems like I'm probably thinking it's maybe the function that is having trouble running. Our get request right here. So fetch currencies. Fetch currencies. So let's just backtrack a bit. Is this actually working? Is this working? So copy, paste it here, and then let's get the API key. So this one, and then let's paste it inside here up to there. Paste it in, enter. Okay, so that is working, but is it getting the correct value? So let's go ahead and say console.log, and then console log this. So console log the process.env.that, save it. Let's see what we have. Okay, so it's getting the correct thing. So up to here is correct. And then we're getting the currencies. Const response is equal to that. Axios.get URL, which is this one. The currency list, we're converting the currencies to an array because it was showing up. So toast.error, so in case there's an error. And then we're calling fetch currencies. So fetch currencies is this function. And then for the flag URL, we're getting this from flag CDN. I don't understand why it's not working. I do not understand. Okay, so you know what? What I do when such a thing occurs is that I just continue building it out, because sometimes I usually find the answer ahead. So let's just continue building it out, and then we're going to figure it out. So let's go back inside here, and then we're going to go below the select, and below the select we're going to have a button here, a button which on click, when you click on this button, is going to call a function called swap currencies. Swap currencies, and then the variant for this button is going to be an outline, which is coming from shardcn. And then inside this button, we're going to render out the arrow left, which we already imported. And the arrow left is going to have a class name here of size-6. And then the text is just simply going to say swap. Now let's go ahead and create this function, which is very, very simple. So right below the flag URL, so we're going to say const swap currencies is equal to an arrow function like so. So we're simply going to say set from to. So set the from currency to the to currency, and then set to from. So simply like that, and that's the entire function. Save that, and then let's go ahead below the button. So below the button, we're going to have another select which is similar to this. So I think it's even easier if you just copy it. So let's just copy this select, copy, and then below the button we're going to paste in the select, and the select for this one is going to be as follows. The value is going to be 2. The on value change really is going to be set 2. This is going to be 2. The alt is going to be 2. The value here, so select value here is going to be 2. And then this is going to say select currency, just like that. And then currencies.length here, that should be okay. Get value, we're still getting the value of the currency, fantastic. And then if there's no currency, then we're simply returning loading. So that's okay. And then now we're going to go below the select, and then below this first div of the select, we're going to return a button here. And when you click on this button, so on click, it's going to call a function here called convert currency. And then convert currency is going to have a variant here of default, so default. And then we're going to say that if loading is true, then the text of the button, so if loading is true, then the text of the button should say converting ... And then if it is not loading, then the button text should say convert. Now let's go ahead and create this function next. So we're going to go right below this. We're going to say const convert currency is equal to an inline function, or an arrow function. Why do I keep saying inline? And the convert currency actually is going to be an asynchronous function. And then inside here, we're going to say the following. We're going to check if there is an amount. So if there is no amount, if no amount or the amount is less than or equal to 0, then we simply want to break out of it and return. And then we're going to say set loading to true. So we want our loading state to be active. And then we're going to add our try catch block as follows. Now, because it's easier, we're going to say the following. On the error, we're going to say toast.error. Toast.error, we're going to say error typing. So error converting currency. And then we're going to add a description here, which is going to say error.message. So it gives a more descriptive message. And then we're going to have a finally block here, which is going to say set loading to false. And then now on the try block, we're going to say the following. Const response is equal to await axios dot get, and then we want to pass in the URL, and then const rate, so we want to get the rate is equal to response dot data dot conversion underscore rates, so conversion, I saw it, underscore rates, and then we want to pass in as an array 2 so that it gets the correct value. And then we're going to say set converted amount into the amount times the rate dot to fixed, and then pass in 2 decimal places. So we want to return a maximum of 2 decimal places. Now once we do that, we should be able to test out our convert currency, but our function is not working inside here. So actually let this load in so that it updates the UI. There we go. So now, oh, look at that, look at that, look at that. So there's something wrong with our from currency. Oh, you know what? It just clicked. It just clicked. The reason why you can see the 2 currency is probably because we have the 2 here already set. So if I were to set this into Kenya shillings, then this should also show the flag. Don't embarrass me, come on. There we go. So okay, so this is something that we're going to fix. We're actually going to fix it using another API. So it can just remain blank for now. It can remain as if it's not working. But now if we click the drop down, we should be able to see the other currencies as well. There we go. Look at that. Look at that. And there are flags such as this one that are not loading, but this one is probably because of my internet. But there are others on the bottom which don't have images corresponding to them. So just scroll to the bottom. There we go. So these ones right here don't have images corresponding to them. I checked them out in the API, and we're going to give a fallback for them, but not right now. So let's just continue building out our application. Now below the button, we're going to go below our button right here. Below the button, we want to check whether converted amount exists. And we know that converted amount only exists if you have clicked the convert button. So only if it exists, then we want to return a card description here. So card description with a class name of margin top of 12, text dash center, text dash 4XL, font dash normal, and then text neutral dash, oh my god, neutral dash 800, and then on dark mode text dash white, and wait a minute, this is redundant, right? Didn't we do that in our globals.css? Text neutral 900. Okay, set it to 900, so probably it's not redundant. Okay, so inside here we're going to turn a span here, and the span is going to have a class name of text-6xl, and then font bold, and then the span is going to say amount. So amount, and then outside of the span, outside of the closing, we're going to enter out from, and then equals to, and then we're going to have another span, and then this span is going to have a class name of text-6xl, and then font bold, and then the span text is going to say converted amount. So converted amount, and then outside of this span the text is going to say 2. Now if I save that, it should be formatted much better. So we're saying from, or rather the amount, so we are converting the amount here. We're simply rendering the from amount, and we're also rendering out the amount that we type in, and then we're rendering out the converted amount that it comes to from the API. Now we should be able to save that, and then now we should be able to, probably should test this out. I think we should be able to test it out right now. So let's see, let's test it out. So let's just say 5, and then okay, my computer is freezing. Then convert it, the button should now say converting, and there we go. So 5 is equal to 5. Now I think this is where I messed it up, because if I swap this, we should be able to swap it. So now the USD should come here, and then this should come here, and then if I click convert again, it should convert correctly. So 5 USD should be like not a number. Oh my god. Okay, let's fix our application. Sometimes I hate this. Okay, so as we're still figuring out why this is not working, because I can't seem to find the issue, let's go ahead and fix our tool right here. So we want to fix this so that we can actually show like a flag here. Now the way that we're going to do that is we're going to create a function here, which is going to be going into another API so that we can detect the location of the user. So we're going to create a function here called detect user currency, and that this is going to be an asynchronous function where we're going to say this. We're going to have a try catch block once again, and then on the error we're going to say toast.error, and then we're going to say error detecting user location, and then we're going to have a description here that says error.message. And then once we do that, we're going to have a finally block, and the finally block is just simply going to say set loading to false, so that it stops our loading animation. And then on the try block, we're going to say const response is equal to await axios dot get, and then we're going to pass in https ipapi.co/json/. Now you can go ahead and open this up on your web browser to see the kind of return that you're going to be getting, but I don't want to do it because it shows a lot more data. So it shows even the IP as well as your location, so I don't want to do that. And then below this we're going to say set from, so set the from currency into the response.data.currency, or set it to USD, which is our fallback. So USD, and let's see, is that actually correct? Set from, yes, set from. So set it to the current currency, or that set it to the currency that you get from this, because when you open this up, you notice that there is a key for currency. So we are setting either it's going to be the currency that you're getting from the IP API, or if there's no currency, then the fallback is going to be US dollar. Now let's see. Once we do that, we need to call this function. So right below the fetch currencies in our use effect, we're going to call detect user currency, like so, and then we're going to go ahead and save that, and then now it should be able to detect the currency. So let's reload it, and there we go. Now it detects my current currency, and it should also detect the currency that you're using. So looking very nice. So now if I try to convert 50, so 50 Kenya shillings into USD is like, I don't know, 0 point something, but it doesn't convert exactly as I want. So let me try this. If I swap it and then convert, we're getting not a number. Oh, it's working now. Wait, what? Okay, why is it working? It wasn't working a few moments ago. Now it's working. Or perhaps it is because of the currency. It wasn't detecting the currency, maybe. Huh. Interesting. Because I didn't run into this error when I was building it out. But anyway, we seem to have overcome it. So let's just be happy and continue. So yeah, would you look at that? So 50 USD is, look how weak the Kenyan shilling is. And let's see, is there anything else that we need to do? Let me see. Let's check our state values. Usually if there's one grayed out, it means there's something that we've not done. So all the state values are there. We have used everything inside here. And let's see. Oh, just remember something. The flag URL. So I mentioned earlier that there are some currencies that don't have the flag. So what we're going to do is we're going to render out special flags for them. So if you go into the repository, which will be linked in the description, then you can go into the app folder, and then inside the app folder you're going to find the page.js right here, and then you can open up, actually it's not the app folder, it should be the components folder, and then currency converter. And then if you go ahead and find the function that gets the currencies or that gets the flags right here, you can see that we are rendering out special flags for those specific countries that don't have the flag on flag CDN. So what I'm going to do is simply just copy this part for the special flags, copy, and then right on top right here, I'm going to paste them in. So I've added a comment here that for the XAF flag, which is the Central African Republic, then it renders this flag. For this one, it renders this flag, and so on and so forth. So this is basically only the ones that don't have flags. And then for the rest of them that have flags, then we're rendering that. So that now, first of all, let's go back into application and confirm that there are no flags for them. So all the way to the bottom. And right there, you can see that they don't have a flag. But now if we save that, now we can check back again once it reloads. So let's reload it to be on the safe side. And then grab this, open, and then let's go to the bottom. And we should see, still not rendering out. I think there's an issue. I'm really beginning to think it's probably an issue with my internet, because it wasn't giving me this error when I was building it out. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. But with that, I think we have done everything. I actually think we have done everything. Now, before we finish, let's go ahead and add a use effect right on the bottom. And let me actually make this a bit better. So let's grab this convert currency. Let's place it right below the get flag URL. And then after the swap currencies, we're going to add a use effect here. And the use effect is going to have the following. We're going to go ahead inside here. We want to check if the from value exists. So if there's a from value and there's a to value and the amount is also greater than 0. So if all these evaluate to true, then we want to call the function called convert currency. Oh my god, what's that? Convert currency, which is the function that we created to convert the currency right, where is it? Right here. So convert currency, and wait a minute. Am I using this anywhere? Oh, that's why it wasn't working. So it wasn't my internet, but let's just hold on that because we're already doing this. So convert currency, and then we want to have a dependency array here of from and to. So basically these two. Now what this use effect does is it checks whether the from value exists and whether the to value exists, and then it checks whether amount is greater than 0, because that means that there is some input that has taken place. And if that is true, then we want to convert the amount that is already in the input. So that's why you have this use effect inside here. Now, the special flags here, the way that we need to use them is we're going to cut this out, and then we're going to return, and let me place that on another line. So return special flags, and then inside special flags, we're going to pass in inside square brackets, we're going to pass in the currency so that it gets the correct currency, so that it renders the correct flag. And then if that is true or false, then we want to go ahead and render out our original flag like so, and now the semicolon should be there. Save that, and that should be okay. Now we can reload our application, and oops, oh, so I was using currencies from not currencies really, but flags from other domains, so we need to add them as well. And just because it's going to be easier, let me change this back into an asterisk so that it allows every other domain. And then now we can reload that and then test it out again. Okay, so let's try it out. So let's try converting 100. This is 100 Kenya shillings or whatever. That should convert, and it's still not showing the correct value. So it's still not converting correctly. So if you see where I went wrong in the video, then please leave it down in the comments, because it's also going to help with engagement of the video, but as well it's going to help me to learn something. But then if we swap this out, then convert again, there we go. Oh, and that was another purpose of the use effect. See how in the use effect, that we just added, so instead of having to click on the convert button every time that you click on the swap button, then it automatically does it for you. So that's very, very nice. Now let's see. I wanted to do something. Oh, I was checking the flags. Yes, let's check the flags first of all to make sure that they are all correct. And there we go. So this is still not working for some reason, but you can see how now they are showing the correct flags. So that's looking much better. And then now the final thing, let's jump into our layout. Let's go ahead and change the title right here. So for the title for this, we're just going to say currency converter, and then the description is going to say as follows. Simply going to say currency converter using the exchange rate API, Axios, Tailwind CSS, ShadCN, and Next.js. Now go ahead and save that. And to end the video, I just want to mention it once again that if you want access to the code that you have written, simply go into my GitHub profile. So into my GitHub profile, the repository is called currency converter. So simply search for this and you're going to have access to the code. But with that, we have now come to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something new. And if you did, please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well if you're not already, and you can share it out with your friends as well. And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.